Where did you get introduced to rowing?
I started at St. Joseph's University. I was a walk-on there after playing football, wrestling, lacrosse, all that in high school. And then basically just, arrived on campus freshman year. And then about 2 weeks of being a normal student, saw that the rowing team was hosting tryouts, hosting, kind of walk-on opportunities, which is common for at the college level. And, walked down to the boathouse and didn't know that we'd be here 15 years later, but, coaching it. But that was kind of my start to rowing, was once I arrived on campus as a college walk-on.
Did you have any knowledge of the sport beforehand?
I remember actually I think sophomore year, it was summer playing football. We were doing 2-a-days August, and actually we were watching the Olympics in one of the art rooms or something like that for our lunch break. And I was watching it, and I was like, okay, well, that was my first real exposure, at least that I remember. And we were watching it, and I was like, wow, these guys are big, tall, strong guys, absolutely ripping down the course. I had no idea of anything endurance-based. Again, wrestling and football were my background in high school. But I saw that, and I was like, okay, this is a different kind of sport. This is a different kind of level. And then obviously, fast forward 3 years, I'm doing it. But that was my first exposure to actually seeing the sport.
And can you tell us about your coaching career a little bit, and then how you got started with At the 1,000?
So the coaching career, I obviously I rowed all 4 years, and kind of had a very, the trajectory was, starting at the bottom of the team, working my way up. Freshman, sophomore year were a bit of a struggle. Junior and senior year, I started to kind of put things together, started to get a little bit better at the sport. Then I was a finance and risk management major at St. Joe's, but I always knew that I'm someone who likes to be outside, can't sit in an office for very long, has to kind of be very passionate about the work that they do. So after a year or so in the real world, transitioned to, I just started sending emails out to a bunch of high schools in the Philadelphia area, or kind of out on the main line where I was working at the time. And Bill Gennaro with Archbishop Carroll responded to one of my emails, saying that they're looking for assistant coaches. Now, having been in the space for a number of years now, I realize that assistant coaches are more in demand than they are my accolades kind of getting me the job. So they're kind of looking for people to fill some seats and safety of the kids and all that. So that was my first start to coaching. I spent about a year and a half, probably about a year there at the high school level, while still working in the financial services industry. And then fast forward to November of 2016, I get reached out to by my previous head coach, Mike Irwin. He is a longtime coach at St. Joe's where I rowed. And he said, there's the potential that we're going to be losing our assistant coach at the time. Would you have any interest in joining and being an assistant coach and making that career shift, which was an interesting conversation with my parents, going from, kind of what my degree was at St. Joe's to then becoming a full-time coach. Definitely a change in compensation and salary and all these different things. But, I knew that my direction was something within a field that I was really passionate about. And so then it actually took all the way till February of 2017. That's when I started coaching from that lens, from that side of the table. And haven't looked back on that side. But then I guess it was at the 1,000 to bridge off of it. Obviously I was at St. Joe's for 6 years, coaching at the Division I level, recruiting, loved it, loved being part of my alma mater, and seeing the successes that we were able to build throughout my 6 years there. And then at the 1,000 came about really from my passion for fitness, my passion for training, my passion for helping athletes on that side of the rowing, on the rowing journey. So at the 1,000 came about where really I was just doing some personal training as a side income while I was still doing full-time coaching. And then through that, naturally, got a few years in and wanted to branch out and actually go full-time with it. So that was back in August of 2022, but I already had been posting content, talking about the business, talking about recruiting and coaching and training, and then went full-time in 2022. And that's where really the real journey began. It was after that year of coaching where I decided, okay, I'm ready to step forward into this journey, found the garage, opened that up, and haven't looked back since.
Can you tell us a little bit about at the thousands programs like the ATT Collective, the summer programs, winter training, stuff like that?
The real drive of At the Thousand and where it came about was I really love helping athletes with that next phase of their rowing journey. As someone who walked on in college, didn't row in high school, I look at things from kind of a different lens where I wasn't exposed to high school rowing. I was exposed to high school sports. And At the Thousand came about because I was very passionate about the training side of rowing and the helping athletes with that next phase in rowing, which is getting recruited and hopefully finding success at the college level. That journey turned into just helping athletes on just the training side, helping them develop confidence on the erg. That's something that I'm very passionate about. I wouldn't be sitting where I am today if I didn't develop a passion for the machine, for the erg. So that was just something naturally I was very passionate about. Wanted to help athletes with that. You can't do that as a college coach in the same way because of conflicts with recruiting and all that. So that's where I had to kind of go full time with it. Then through my knowledge on that side, wanted to transition to the recruiting side as well. And that's where the podcast became a thing, right? Kind of interviewing coaches and learning from them, and then branching that off into just educational resources as a whole. So the podcast, YouTube content, Instagram content, posting on there consistently with just information that I have, and then providing additional resources like the ATT Collective, which is a membership-based educational platform for high school athletes, their parents, people who want to really develop an understanding and be able to navigate the college rowing recruiting process. Because I think there's a lot of information out there that is kept close to the vest by college coaches, rightfully so. But how can you kind of be able to bring that information to high school athletes and their families in a way that is digestible, in a way that they understand? So that's where that evolved. So when you think about At the Thousand as a whole, it's those three sides. It's the rowing education, it's the coaching and recruiting consulting, right? The individual work that I do with athletes, both remotely all over the country, but also in person in the garage. And then it's the camps and clinics where, that's one of the highlights. We just finished our winter training program a few days ago where we had 10 athletes over 2 months, just helping them with training and developing confidence on the erg, building the base fitness, and then obviously some 2K prep since we're here in the winter. And then in the summer, Sasha, which having joined us last August, the summer training side of things where a lot of that's about preparation for the fall, learning how to get comfortable on the erg, strength training, and just, again, helping athletes with that transition between spring rowing and fall rowing. Because to me, I'm someone who really thinks that training at its core is what leads to success in our sport. I think developing a passion for training. So the summer program, Sasha, as you know, a lot of that is centered around developing that passion, ownership of the splits on the erg, and taking ownership in your training, and how that better positions you for your success at the college level. So it's not just about outcomes and 2K performance and all that. We didn't do any 2Ks in the summer. It's about learning the skills that help not only position you for a successful fall, but things that you can take with you into your college journey.
What is your favorite mindset to see in student athletes?
Resiliency in adversity. And I mean that more so from the work surrounding rowing, the work that athletes do, or the work that contributes to our success in rowing. The athletes who, when you write it up on the whiteboard and you talk about it, yeah, they might have a question or two, but that's the work. And they look at that as a challenge worth pursuing, not as something that they need to be fearful of, something that they want to run away from. It's something that, okay, well, this is something that I understand is going to get me better. And I understand that the coaches are putting me through purposeful challenges, and I'm going to lean into that. I'm going to step into that, and I'm going to, embrace that kind of work. So that's more a resiliency or a confidence that athletes have. And athletes that don't have it, my job is to hopefully help them understand, you should approach this with confidence. You should approach this based off your training and feel like you can pursue, this workout and set yourself up for success. You shouldn't run from it. You shouldn't lean away from it, right? You should step into it. So resiliency, I guess, is if that is a mindset.
Yeah.
If we can zero in on the testing side of things, what would you say is the At the Thousand philosophy around erg testing and making it just another workout? Because I know that was one of my favorite things that I learned from the summer.
Yeah, and it's an amazing question and it's something I'm very passionate about, because I'm not a perfect coach. I have these very foundational principles that I think are things that I think can help especially younger athletes in how they navigate training and expose themselves to different erg tests like we're about to talk about. And so to me, one of the things in terms of just the training itself is it, yes, the whole, if you look at rowing from its core, it's point A to point B as fast as possible. We're trying to get from the start line to the finish line in the fastest way possible. But when you think about the training side of it, or the testing side of it, one of the things that oftentimes happens is we treat an erg test like something other than what it is, which is really just training, execution, and getting from point A to point B in the quickest way possible. But one of the things, Sasha, as you know from our training in August, is can we approach a test? Can we approach a 2K test, a 5K test, a 30-minute, you name it? Can we approach that in the same way we do a normal training session? Can we take it off of its pedestal that is a erg test, a 5K, a 2K, and all the expectation that comes with that test from the the status on the team, selection, recruiting, you're trying to fire these off to coaches, pressure from your parents, who want you to get recruited, from the coaches who, want to base their boats off of these specific erg tests. Can we release you from that expectation and approach it in a way where it's just like any other erg workout? And the philosophy behind that, or one of the things that we talk about a lot, is first half training, second half testing. The whole thing, yes, and when you think about it, right, 2K test, erg test, or 5K test, whatever it may be, when you think about it, yes, it is a test, but if you approach the whole thing as a test, you start to allow a lot of those different expectations to come in. So one of the things we talk about a lot is downhill rowing, being able to set yourself up in a way based off of your training, having confidence in your training, setting yourself up where you can collect momentum as you move throughout the piece, collect momentum as you move throughout the test, whether it's a 5K or a 2K, and giving yourself the opportunity to test the second half, to actually put yourself in a position where you can empty the tank, toe that red line, and actually perform in a way that sets you up for hopefully a PR or at least pretty close. What happens a lot is athletes look at it as a test and they approach it as its own separate category, completely separate from any other workout. And they go out and they don't trust their numbers. They go out thinking this is a feasible result to me because, my teammate did the same thing 2 months ago and I think that I'm faster than them, so I should probably do the same thing. Versus actually having this backing of real, tangible workouts that give you a realistic target, and then shooting for that realistic target right from the first stroke might be challenging. Can you be 1 or 2 splits above and work your way down? And the easiest way to me to help athletes, to help lead them to water when they're doing a test, is through rate structures and rate caps and giving them specific zones based off of prep workouts. One of my philosophies is before you do a test piece, right, my kind of 3 parts is base, prep, test. You do a base workout or a base fitness assessment to kind of figure out physiologically, where are we on the erg. Then you do a prep workout to expose you to the actual test itself. So 5K, it might be 2K, 1K. It might be, maybe you're doing something more, right, like 3 by 2,500, but you're doing a prep workout to expose you to the pacing and the distance that comes with a test. Then you do the test itself based off of your base fitness assessment and your prep workout. So then if you think about it from a 2K standpoint, okay, we have 2,000 meters, right? My goal is to break 7 minutes, right? I'm a high school guy and I'm trying to break 7 minutes for the first time. Okay, well, base, maybe I'm doing a base like 8 by 5 minutes that you're familiar with, Sasha, we did in the garage. 8 by 5 minutes, it's about the same to me as, with 2 minutes rest, it's about the same to me as a 30-minute test. We used to do 30-minute testing with our college athletes on a monthly basis, right? Helping kind of see where are they progressing. And the reason we did that was because it's about 9 to 11 splits above 2K. So for a college male, let's call it 10 splits above 2K, okay? So I took that and I made 8 by 5 minutes, right? 8 by 5 minutes is a base fitness test. If you go 155 for 8 by 5 minutes, you have the fitness, in my eyes, you have the fitness to go 145 for 2,000 meters. Okay, so you do the base test first, then that sets you up for the prep workout. So there's two kinds of prep workouts. You have exposure prep workouts, and then you have execution prep workouts, right? And it's February, right? So we're talking a lot about 2Ks, right? An example of a exposure prep workout would be like 8 by 500 meters. So 8 by 500 meters, 2 minutes rest. That workout maxed out is going to be about 1 to 2 splits faster than 2K, right? So you max out an 8 by 500, 1 to 2 splits faster. So let's say you averaged, based off of that 155 base fitness assessment, you averaged 143s for the 8 by 500 prep workout. Okay, now I know as an athlete, I'm in the range of that 145 for 2K. Then, if we have the time, right, again, not everyone has all the flexibility in the world to do 2K specific work or all these different prep workouts, but then you do an execution-based workout. That teaches you about what we talked about before. First half training, second half testing. What does that first half look like? In an execution-based workout, it might be 2 by 1K. Just practice the first 1,000 meters. When you get to the end of that 1,000 meters, can you, with using that internal gauge in the back of your mind, do you feel like you can sustain that for another 1,000 meters? Do you feel like you can progress it? Do you feel like you can push even further? Or if you got to 1,000 meters into that prep workout and you're like, there's no chance I can sustain this, well, then we know that's probably not a realistic target to start with. You should probably back it up a little bit. So it's kind of that process that, to me, where it is to help set athletes up for success, to help set athletes up, to lead them to water so that the second half they can truly maximize that piece. And in doing that, one of the things that I'm really big on is, can you leave the garage, can you leave feeling motivated, feeling energized? And we never feel energized from a fly and die. We never feel energized from a piece where we went out way too hot and we were struggling for, to hold any kind of, split resembling who we are as an athlete. And then we're walking out of there miserable. We're walking out of there really unsatisfied with our training. We're walking out of there with negative thoughts on the erg. And in reality, if you set yourself up for success through, again, that process, or through first half training, second half testing, you're giving yourself a shot to have a really successful last quarter of the workout, last quarter of the piece, and hopefully you're taking that and walking out of the garage, walking out of practice energized, motivated. So again, base, prep, test, all for the purposes of giving you a realistic target that you can sustain, trusting the numbers, and hopefully positioning yourself for a successful piece.
A little bit off topic.
Yeah.
Which would you rather be, an erg, berg, or skurg, and why?
Which would I be, an erg, a berg, or a skurg? I love this question. I have to go erg, but I can't just do that without providing really good defense for both for the berg and the skurg. And so we have all three in the garage. I'm an erg guy. I erg every day still to this day. I'm in my 30s. I love it. It's what I'm passionate about. It's the best bang for your buck workout on planet Earth, and that's why I do what I do now. I'm very passionate, and everything I talk about is authentic to its core because I am very passionate about the erg. The berg, I think, is one of the best alternatives to the erg because it's a modality that you can stack a lot of volume on, but still equate it to what you do on the erg. It's the same splits. The splits are comparable. You can do 1.5, 2 times volume and get a really, really good workout in and preserve the body a little bit more than just stacking meters on meters on meters on the erg. So you can get a lot of volume, build the aerobic base, but not truly, put yourself in a position where, you're at risk of getting hurt. The skurg, so why we bought a few skurgs and added them to the garage, and the winter group was very passionate about not being on the skurg. So like we do in the garage is if there's something that we complain about, we lean into it. And so we did a lot of skurging throughout the winter. The skurg, to me, one of the things that I love, I interviewed John Graves a few months back in the summer. He's the head coach of women's rowing at Dartmouth. And he talked about how a lot of their athletes in the winter, or as a team, they'll do a lot of cross-country skiing. And so they're up in, New Hampshire, very cold. If all you're doing is being on the erg for November through February, March, what's the risk of burnout, what's the risk of, injuries, all these different things. So they'll do a lot of cross-country skiing. The SCERG, right, the ski erg, we're here in Philly. We can't necessarily go up and do some cross-country skiing. I'm not a skier myself. So can the SCERG be an alternative that athletes can do where it has the same flow? And one of the things he mentioned was it actually helped them with minimizing rib injuries and things like that, right? A different modality, but you still get your heart rate up. The erg splits are still present, just like they are on the berg, just like they are on the erg. So you can actually learn how to hold a number and sustain it. But it's an alternative training modality that challenges the body in a different way. So I love the SCERG as well. I'm a novice ski erg athlete, so I'm still exposing myself to it. But again, coming back to your question, full circle, I'm an erg. Right, gotta be on. If I'm choosing one, it's the erg. Right, if I'm on a desert island and I can only have one piece of equipment, it's an erg.
We have the PCR Indoor Classic coming up, and we have the PCR 10K Challenge. How do you personally approach long distance testing and long distance pieces and training for those long distance pieces?
I erg every day. I don't do high intensity erg training every day. I'm in my 30s. I don't need to. So a lot of the work that I do is centered around longer distance pieces. One of my favorite, probably 3 or 4 times a week, I do 12K straight through, right? Rate 20. And on a good day, I'm, in the low 150s. On a bad day, I'm at 159s, whatever it may be. I did it this morning. And 10,000 meters. So if you are an experienced athlete, right? Let's use a high school boy, right? High school guy. You may be kind of in that 154 to 2 minute range, which would be 38 minutes to 40 minutes range, right? So it's a long piece. If you're a high school girl, right, you might be between 40 to 42 minutes to 43 minutes, 44 minutes. So when you're doing that, I think one of the biggest things is it's a long piece. You have to learn how to pace yourself in a way that same thing sets you up for success in the second half. And a lot of my ability to pace, a lot of my ability to learn proper structure of a long distance piece was actually through marathon running. So when I graduated a few years after rowing, and kind of when I first started coaching, I started running marathons. And by running marathons, I mean 3 of them, right? I've done 3. And I'm an okay runner, but I learned how to be a better runner over time. But one of the things with training for marathons is you have to, and especially if you're training like I am, which is not necessarily, what you're going to read online and all that. I kind of would run until, I failed sometimes. And again, that's not what we're going to see in most, training articles. But it's good to experiment with that every once in a while. And so for running for long distances, you learn how to properly pace yourself. You learn how to pick up momentum as you go. You learn how to check your, split or check your target and then kind of zone out and kind of let it free flow for a couple miles and then check back in, or for a couple laps around the track, or for a couple light posts and then you check back in. You're not married to what's going on the screen. So I treat a lot of the longer distance pieces, right? So 12K, 15K, 20K, 10K, like we're going to be doing at the Indoor Classic, which I haven't officially submitted my name for the 10K itself, but I guess I'll make that announcement here. I will be, doing the 10K and trying to, improve off of last year's tough test. But when you approach that, can you look at it in a way where, just like a marathon, you're breaking it up into different segments throughout the effort, throughout the test? So to me, if I'm doing a 10K, right, it's almost like chunking, right? You're not focusing on the full 10K itself. All you're focusing on is one segment of 10,000 meters. So easy way to do it is, okay, well, first 2,500 meters. If you're going at 2-minute splits, that's going to be 10 minutes, right? So can you execute the first 10 minutes? Okay, now you're in the meat of it. Now you're in the middle 5K. Through that middle 5K, those can be 2 separate chunks. Okay, well, that next 2,500 meters gets me to halfway, right? If you think about first half training, second half testing, okay, well, I've gotten through the first 5K. Now, 2,500 meters becomes a very challenging, next phase when you're entering the third 500 or the third quarter of a 10K, right? So can you break it into smaller chunks? Okay, well, 5K, can I get to 4K, right? And then 4K, can I get to 3K, right? 3K, can I get to 2,500? So you're going from 2,500s to then thousands to then 500s. So once I'm at 2,500 meters to go, if I'm trying to sustain a speed, if I'm trying to make a push, can I go 500, 500, 500, 500, right? All the way down to zero. And can I try to just check that one box and then move on to the next one rather than thinking, I still have 4K to go. I still have 3K to go. That's like 12 minutes, right? Rather than thinking about the end goal, can I focus on each segment in front and treat it like not one 10,000 meter piece, but either 4 2,500 meter pieces or, 10 1Ks, right? And each one's a different segment. So one of the things I think about a lot was in an interview with Greg Meyer. This was like 2 months ago, actually. And we talk, he's a beast. He's one of the most fun coaches out there. He used to coach at St. Joe's as, kind of like a step between when he was at Penn and then went up to Massachusetts, then eventually landed out at Marietta. And I had him on the podcast, and he's a very legendary coach that a lot of people know. And one of the things that he said was, can you get to the next light post? So when you're doing these longer pieces, kind of bringing it back to running, all your focus is on, can I get to the next light post? And so I think that's where, I've been doing that naturally, but to kind of hear it in that context, to hear it kind of displayed like that, everyone can relate to that. Can I get to the next light post rather than can I get 4 miles down the road? That's a different effort to, I just got to make it to this next benchmark.
How can student athletes reach out to you to join at the 1,000 or to get info about it?
Number one, I'm in Philly. I'm pretty much at every regatta in the spring, every regatta in the fall. We'll have the tents, right? So a lot of athletes, right? Sasha, right? How we got introduced was at a table and just having a conversation about training, and then next thing you know, you're doing the August program with us. So that's one piece where okay, like I'm going to be present at a lot of the regattas, and so feeling, reaching out, parents reach out. That's the whole reason I'm down there, is to support my athletes who are participating in the regattas, but also to have conversations with many of the parents who I don't get to talk to as frequently, and also introduce myself to new athletes. So the table, the tent, I'll be at most of the regattas in Philly and some of the regattas that are, kind of within a drive's distance. Then on social media, that's one of the big pieces, so we do a lot of social media content. A lot of people reach out via, direct messages and all that. So that's another piece that where if athletes wanted to reach out, and then finding the website at 1000.com. Plenty of ways to reach me. I'll be at every regatta.
Awesome. We'll look for your table.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure to jump on and dive into some fun rowing conversations. So you guys are doing great. This is awesome.